The Zephyrian homeworld of Kepler 442b hung like a wounded jewel against the black canvas of space, its once pristine blue atmosphere now streaked with the ugly brown scars of orbital bombardment. Admiral This's Kara stood in the command center of the evacuation vessel Times Mercy's Wing *, her forearms trembling as she watched another transport ship explode in a brilliant flash of white light. "That's the 7th medical transport we've lost today," reported her aide, Lieutenant Vexthal, his voice barely containing the despair that had infected their entire fleet. The Korthak Empire isn't distinguishing between military and civilian vessels anymore. This's Kara's compound eyes tracked the movement of enemy fighters as they swarmed through the debris field that had once been her people's orbital hospitals. The Korthak had been systematically destroying every medical facility, every rescue ship, every glimmer of hope her species had managed to cling to during this 3-month siege. "Status report on the refugee camps?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Surface camps 7 through 12 have gone silent. We estimate 40,000 civilians trapped in the remaining shelters, but our medical supplies are nearly depleted. The wounded." Vexthal paused, his voice catching. "Admiral, we have over 12,000 injured who will die without proper treatment. Our field medics are doing what they can, but we lack the equipment, the medicines, the expertise for injuries this severe." The Zephyrian species had always been peaceful explorers and traders, their medical knowledge focused on healing rather than trauma surgery. They had never encountered wounds caused by plasma artillery, radiation burns from antimatter explosions, or the psychological damage inflicted by months of relentless warfare. Their gentle nature, which had made them welcome throughout the galaxy as skilled diplomats and merchants, now seemed like a cruel joke as their children died from wounds their doctors couldn't treat. "Have we received any response from the Galactic Medical Coalition?" This's Kara asked, though she knew the answer would bring little comfort. "The Altarian medical ships were destroyed en route 3 days ago. The Centauran hospital ships turned back after losing half their fleet to Korthak ambushes. The Andromedans." Vexthal's voice grew even quieter. "The Andromedans sent their regrets, and a promise to accept refugees who can make it to their territory." This's Kara felt her heart sink. The Andromedans controlled space lanes 3 months away at conventional speed. Her people would be extinct long before any survivors could reach their borders. "There is one other option, Admiral," Vexthal said hesitantly. "The humans." A strange silence fell over the command center. Everyone knew about humanity, of course. The young species that had joined the galactic community barely 50 standard years ago, emerging from a small blue world in the Orion Arm with an enthusiasm that many older civilizations found both charming and naive. They had been eager to help, eager to learn, eager to prove themselves worthy of membership in the vast community of spacefaring peoples. But they were so new, so inexperienced. What could they possibly offer that the ancient Altarians or the wise Centaurans could not? "The humans have responded to our distress call," Vexthal continued. "They're offering to send medical assistance." "Medical assistance?" This's Kara almost laughed, but the sound came out as a bitter clicking. What could humans possibly know about treating Zephyrian physiology? They've barely figured out their own biology. How many human doctors have even seen a Zephyrian before, let alone treated one for combat injuries? "Perhaps," suggested Communications Officer Ral Theta from her station, "we could send them detailed anatomical data? Their computers could help their medical staff adapt their techniques." This's Kara considered this. Human technology was surprisingly advanced for such a young species, and their artificial intelligence systems had impressed even the ancient vegan collective. But medical knowledge wasn't something that could be simply downloaded and applied. It required years of training, intuitive understanding of biological systems, and experience with countless variations and complications. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. "They estimate 4 days at maximum velocity," Vexthal replied. 4 days. This's Kara looked at the tactical display, showing Korthak forces tightening their grip around the planet. In 4 days, there might be nothing left to save. But what choice did they have? "Send our medical databases to the human fleet," she ordered. "Include everything. Anatomical charts, common diseases, pharmaceutical data, surgical procedures. If they're coming to help, Give them every advantage we can. As her crew began transmitting terabytes of medical data toward the approaching human fleet, Thisiskara tried to prepare herself for disappointment. The humans meant well, but good intentions wouldn't save her people from bleeding out in underground bunkers. Still, she had to admire their courage. Most species would have offered sympathy and safe harbor for any refugees who managed to escape. Only the humans had volunteered to fly directly into a war zone to help strangers they'd never met. Hours passed in a blur of emergency reports and desperate rescue attempts. The Korthak forces seemed to sense that help was coming and intensified their attacks. 3 more refugee camps went silent. The remaining medical transports huddled behind the shattered remains of the orbital defense platforms, afraid to venture out into the killing field that space around Kepler 442b had become. Then Lieutenant Vexthal's voice cut through the chaos with an urgency that made everyone turn. "Admiral, I'm detecting gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." Thisiskara felt her heart skip. "The human medical ships? I'm not sure, Admiral. The signatures are larger than expected. Much larger." The main view screen flickered as long-range sensors struggled to penetrate the exotic energy patterns surrounding the hyperspace emergence point. Slowly, shapes began to resolve from the quantum foam. What they saw defied all expectations. The lead vessel was enormous, easily 3 kilometers long, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements and armor plating thick enough to shrug off asteroid impacts. Behind it came another, and another, and another. 12 massive warships materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls painted in stark white, with prominent red crosses that gleamed like fresh blood against the darkness of space. "Those aren't medical ships," whispered Communications Officer Ral Theta. "Those are warships. Human warships." Thisiskara stared at the display in stunned silence. Each vessel was larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Larger than most Korthak heavy cruisers, but they bore medical symbols, and their identification transponders clearly marked them as hospital ships of the Terran Medical Corps. "I don't understand," Vexthal said, voicing what everyone was thinking. "Why would humans build hospital ships that look like dreadnoughts?" Before anyone could answer, the communication board lit up with an incoming transmission. A human face appeared on the screen, weathered and serious, with steel-gray eyes that seemed to hold depths of experience far beyond humanity's brief time among the stars. "Zephyrian vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Medical Fleet Ship × Hippocrates *. We received your distress call and have come to provide medical assistance. Please transmit coordinates for the most critically injured populations. We'll begin emergency evacuations immediately." Thisiskara found her voice, though it trembled with confusion and hope. "Admiral Chen, we were expecting medical ships, not warships." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "These are medical ships, Admiral Thisiskara. The finest hospital ships in the Terran fleet. Each vessel carries enough medical equipment to treat 1 million casualties, surgical suites that can handle the most complex operations, and staff trained in xenobiology for over 200 different species. But the weapons," Thisiskara gestured helplessly at her tactical display, which was highlighting enough firepower to level a small moon. For the first time, Admiral Chen smiled. And there was something in that expression that made Thisiskara's blood run cold. It wasn't cruelty, but rather the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the worst the universe could offer and emerged victorious. "Admiral," Chen said quietly, "in human medicine, we have an ancient principle. First, do no harm. But we also have another principle. One that's equally important. Protect your patients at all costs. These ships aren't just hospitals. Admiral, they're fortresses, and any force that tries to prevent us from saving lives will discover exactly what that means." As if summoned by her words, the tactical display suddenly erupted with new contacts. A Korthak battle squadron, 20 ships strong, was moving to intercept the human fleet. Thisiskara felt her newly kindled hope crumble. The humans had come to help, but they were about to be slaughtered by forces that had crushed the combined fleets of 3 star systems. "Admiral Chen, she said urgently. You need to withdraw immediately. The Korthak have numerical superiority, and their weapons have been analyzed and catalogued. Chen interrupted calmly. Thank you for the warning, Admiral. But we've been studying Korthak tactics and capabilities during our 4-day journey. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to clear the space lanes for our medical operations. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command crew staring at their screens in stunned silence. On the tactical display, the 12 human hospital ships were moving forward in formation, directly toward the approaching Korthak squadron. They're going to be massacred, whispered Vexthal. Thisiskara said nothing. But deep in her heart, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Anticipation. There was something about Admiral Chen's quiet confidence. Something about the way those massive ships moved through space like predators rather than prey, that suggested the next few minutes would be very interesting indeed. The Korthak squadron accelerated to attack speed, their distinctive wedge-shaped hulls gleaming with the energy of charged weapons. They had destroyed hundreds of ships over the past 3 months, and they approached this new threat with the casual arrogance of a pack of wolves confronting a flock of sheep. They were about to learn that sometimes the sheep have very sharp teeth. As the distance between the fleets closed, Thisiskara found herself holding her breath. In a few moments, they would know whether humanity's gift would be salvation or simply another tragedy to add to the long list of their species' sorrows. But for the first time in months, she dared to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe still held surprises that could change everything. The Korthak squadron leader, War Captain Vex Toroth, studied the approaching human ships with predatory satisfaction. His mandibles clicked in amusement as his tactical officer reported the enemy composition. 12 vessels, War Captain. Large configuration but minimal escort fighters. They appear to be some form of support vessel based on their energy signatures and movement patterns. Vex Toroth's 4 eyes gleamed with anticipation. The Korthak Empire had built its reputation on crushing exactly this kind of naive heroism. Another species sending their precious medical ships into a war zone, believing that mercy and healing could somehow triumph over superior firepower and battlefield experience. Target the largest vessel first, he commanded. Let the others watch their flagship burn before we hunt them down one by one. Today we teach these humans the price of interfering in Korthak conquest. The distance closed to weapons range. Korthak plasma cannons charged with hungry energy, their targeting computers painting the human ships with targeting lasers. For a moment, space held its breath. Then the humans opened fire. What happened next shattered every assumption about human military doctrine that the galaxy had formed over the past 50 years. The lead vessel, the Times Hippocrates *, didn't simply fire its weapons. It unleashed a coordinated barrage that spoke of military precision refined over centuries of warfare. Particle beams lanced out with surgical accuracy, each shot calculated not just to destroy but to maximize tactical advantage. The beams didn't scatter randomly across Korthak hulls but struck with devastating precision at specific targeting points. Weapon emplacements, shield generators, engine housings. In seconds, the lead Korthak cruiser was transformed from a predator into helpless prey. But that was only the beginning. Missile pods that had been disguised as medical supply containers opened like deadly flowers, releasing swarms of smart munitions that moved through space with an intelligence that bordered on supernatural. These weren't the crude, overwhelming barrages favored by most military forces. Each missile seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect, weaving through defensive fire with the fluid grace of living creatures. Impossible, breathed Lieutenant Vexthal aboard the Times Mercy's Wing *. Those targeting solutions. No computer system should be able to calculate trajectories that complex in real time. Admiral Thisiskara watched in fascination as the human fleet demonstrated military capabilities that defied conventional understanding. The 12 ships moved in perfect coordination, each vessel covering the other's fire lanes while maintaining formations that maximized their collective firepower. It was like watching a deadly dance performed by partners who had practiced together for decades. How are they doing this? Asked Communications Officer Raltheta. They've only been in space for 50 years. How could they develop tactics this sophisticated? The answer came from an unexpected source. One of Kara's junior tactical officers, a young male named Kethvar, who specialized in military history, suddenly straightened at his station. "Admiral," he said, his voice filled with dawning realization, "I've been studying human historical records since they joined the galactic community. They've been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. Not just small conflicts or territorial disputes, but massive, civilization-ending wars that consumed entire continents." He pulled up holographic displays showing human historical data. In their most recent global conflict alone, they deployed weapons capable of destroying entire cities in single attacks. They fought simultaneously on multiple continents, across multiple theaters, coordinating operations on a scale that most galactic civilizations have never attempted. Kara felt a chill run down her spine as the implications became clear. While most species had developed spaceflight through peaceful exploration and scientific advancement, humanity had reached the stars carrying the accumulated military experience of thousands of years of warfare. They hadn't just learned to fight in space. They had adapted existing expertise that was already horrifyingly sophisticated. The Korthak Squadron was discovering this truth in the most direct way possible. War Captain Vex Toroth's proud formation was disintegrating under the relentless human assault. Ships that had terrorized 3-star systems were being systematically dismantled by opponents who treated space combat like a science rather than an art. "All ships, scatter formation," Vex Toroth commanded, his voice tight with disbelief. "Individual evasive maneuvers. Target their engines and life support systems." But the humans had anticipated this tactic as well. As the Korthak ships broke formation, the human vessels smoothly transitioned to a different configuration, their movements suggesting that they had planned for exactly this response. Smaller ships that had been hidden behind the larger vessels suddenly revealed themselves, fast attack craft that moved through space with predatory efficiency. These weren't the lumbering hospital ships that most species used for medical operations. They were purpose-built combat medical vessels, designed to fight their way into hostile territory, extract casualties under fire, and defend themselves against any force foolish enough to target medical personnel. The lead Korthak cruiser, its weapons destroyed and engines crippled, drifted helplessly as one of the human hospital ships moved alongside it. Instead of delivering a killing blow, the human vessel extended docking tubes and began boarding procedures. "What are they doing?" Vexthal wondered aloud. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication channel, calm and professional despite the ongoing battle. "Zephyrian vessels. This is Admiral Chen. We're beginning emergency medical operations on captured enemy vessels. Please stand by for casualty transfer protocols." Kara stared at her display in amazement. The humans weren't just defeating the Korthak Squadron. They were simultaneously preparing to treat any wounded enemies they found aboard the ships they had disabled. It was a level of tactical and moral complexity that made her head spin. The battle, if it could still be called that, was winding down with shocking speed. Half the Korthak Squadron had been disabled or destroyed, while the remainder was fleeing toward the outer system in complete disarray. Not a single human vessel showed significant damage. But what truly impressed Kara was what happened next. As the last Korthak ships disappeared beyond sensor range, the human fleet immediately transitioned into medical operations mode. The massive vessels that had just demonstrated overwhelming military superiority began deploying equipment that was clearly designed for humanitarian relief. Medical shuttles launched from hidden bays, each one equipped with advanced trauma units and staffed with teams of medical professionals. "Admiral Kara," Admiral Chen's voice returned. "We're ready to begin emergency evacuations from your surface facilities. Our advanced medical teams are analyzing the physiological data you provided, and I'm pleased to report that our surgical protocols have been successfully adapted for Zephyrian biology." "Adapted how quickly?" Kara asked, still trying to process everything she had witnessed. "During our 4-day journey to your system," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Our medical AI systems worked in conjunction with our xenobiology specialists to develop treatment protocols for the most common trauma injuries. We've also synthesized compatible medications and prepared surgical equipment calibrated for Zephyrian physiology." Kara felt her knees go weak. The humans had not only traveled across hostile space to help strangers, and not only fought their way through a superior enemy force, but they had also spent the entire journey preparing to provide medical care to a species they had never treated before. "We don't understand," she said weakly. "How could you possibly prepare so thoroughly in so little time?" There was a pause before Admiral Chen responded, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a note of something that might have been sadness. "Admiral, humans have spent thousands of years learning how to heal what war destroys. We've had considerable practice adapting our medical knowledge to new situations under emergency conditions. It's not a skill we're proud of having developed, but it's one we're grateful to be able to share when it can save lives." As if to demonstrate her point, the first wave of human medical shuttles was already approaching the planet's surface. Each craft moved with the confidence of pilots who had performed similar operations countless times before, threading through debris fields and atmospheric turbulence with casual expertise. "Lieutenant Vexthal," Thizkara called to her aide, "coordinate with the human medical teams. Give them whatever assistance they need." But even as she spoke, she realized that the humans probably wouldn't need much assistance. They had come prepared for every contingency, armed with both the weapons to clear their path and the knowledge to heal whatever damage they found. As reports began streaming in from the surface, Thizkara felt a growing sense of wonder. The human medical teams weren't just treating injuries. They were performing miracles. Wounded Zephyrians, who had been given up for dead, were being stabilized and transported to the human hospital ships, where surgical teams worked with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. "Admiral," "Communications Officer," Ralph Theta called out, her voice filled with amazement. "I'm receiving reports from Refugee Camp 4. The humans have established a field hospital and are treating patients with injuries we thought were fatal. They're using techniques I've never seen before." "What kind of techniques?" Thizkara asked. "Microsurgery to repair neural damage, regenerative therapy for severed limbs, psychological trauma treatment that's already showing results." Ralph Theta paused, checking her reports. "Admiral, they're not just healing our people. They're making them better than they were before they were injured." Thizkara closed her eyes and tried to process this information. She had expected, at best, that the humans might be able to provide basic medical care and perhaps evacuate some of the most critical cases. She had never imagined that they would arrive with the military capability to drive off their enemies and the medical expertise to perform miracles. But perhaps most remarkably, they had done it all with a calm professionalism that suggested this was simply what humans did. They saw suffering, and they ended it. They encountered enemies, and they defeated them. They found problems, and they solved them. It was, Thizkara realized, exactly what the galaxy needed, but had never dared to hope for. A species that combined the wisdom to heal with the strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. As night fell over Kepler 442b for the first time in months without the sound of falling bombs, Thizkara allowed herself to believe that perhaps her people had a future after all. 3 days after the human medical fleet's arrival, Admiral Thizkara stood in the main medical bay of the Times. Hippocrates *, watching something she had never expected to see again, hope in the eyes of her people. The massive hospital ship was a marvel of engineering that defied every assumption she had held about human technology. Medical bays stretched for kilometers through the vessel's interior, each one equipped with adaptive treatment pods that could be reconfigured for dozens of different species' physiologies. The air hummed with the quiet efficiency of medical equipment that seemed decades ahead of anything the galactic community had developed. "The regeneration chambers are working better than we had anticipated," Dr. Sarah Martinez explained as she guided Thizkara through the ward. The human physician was young by galactic standards, probably no more than 40 standard years. But she moved through the complex medical bay with the confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime mastering her craft. "Our initial concern was that Zephyrian neural tissue might reject the nanite repair protocols, but your species' cellular structure actually responds more readily to regenerative treatment than human tissue does. We've been able to restore functionality to patients with injuries that would have been permanently disabling for humans." Thizkara paused beside a treatment pod, where a young Zephyrian civilian named Lethandra was sleeping peacefully. 3 days ago, Lethandra had been dying from radiation poisoning, Her internal organs shut down from exposure to a Korthak plasma bomb. Now she was not only alive but completely healthy, her body showing no trace of the damage that had been slowly killing her. How is this possible? Thizkara asked. Even our most advanced medical technology couldn't have repaired damage this extensive. Dr. Martinez smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. Admiral, humans developed regenerative medicine out of necessity. We've fought so many wars, caused so much damage to ourselves and our world, that we had to learn how to fix what seemed unfixable. Every technique we're using here was developed to heal injuries caused by human weapons, human conflicts, human mistakes. She gestured toward a group of medical technicians working with equipment that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. Nanite therapy was developed to treat soldiers exposed to nuclear radiation. Neural regeneration protocols were created to help victims of biological warfare. Psychological trauma treatment became necessary when we realized that the wounds war leaves on the mind can be just as crippling as physical injuries. As they continued through the medical bay, Thizkara began to understand the full scope of what the humans had accomplished. This wasn't just advanced medicine. It was medicine developed by a species that had spent millennia learning from their own capacity for destruction. Dr. Martinez, she said carefully, may I ask a personal question? Of course, Admiral. How does your species live with the knowledge of what you're capable of? I've seen your historical records. The wars, the weapons, the scale of destruction you've inflicted on yourselves. How do you maintain hope? Dr. Martinez was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of deep reflection. I think it's because we've learned that the same intelligence that creates weapons can also create healing. The same hands that can destroy can also rebuild. Every doctor, every nurse, every medical technician on this ship is here because we've chosen to use our abilities to preserve life rather than end it. She paused beside another treatment pod, where a Zephyrian child was being treated for injuries that would have been fatal just days earlier. We can't undo our history, Admiral. We can't take back the wars we've fought or the damage we've done, but we can choose what to do with the knowledge we've gained from those mistakes. Every life we save here, every person we heal, is our way of proving that destruction doesn't have to be the end of the story. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent announcement over the ship's communication system. Admiral Chen, to all stations. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Medical Coalition. Priority, Alpha. Thizkara and Dr. Martinez made their way to the command center, where Admiral Chen was receiving a holographic communication from the Coalition's High Council. The three-dimensional images showed representatives from a dozen different species, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright amazement. Admiral Chen, the lead representative, an elderly Altarian named Wisdom Keeper Veltharis, spoke with the formal tone reserved for official proceedings. We have been monitoring your operations in the Kepler 442 system with great interest. The reports we're receiving seem difficult to verify. Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. What specific aspects concern you, Wisdom Keeper? Our understanding is that your fleet engaged and defeated a superior Korthak force, while simultaneously conducting large-scale medical evacuations. Furthermore, our medical advisors tell us that the treatment protocols you're using should be impossible to adapt for Zephyrian physiology in such a short time frame. I can provide detailed operational reports and medical documentation, Chen replied calmly. Which specific capabilities would you like me to verify? The Coalition representatives exchanged glances before Veltharis continued. Admiral, humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 50 years. The medical techniques you're demonstrating represent centuries of advanced research. The military capabilities you've displayed exceed anything we've seen from your species previously. How do you explain this apparent contradiction? Thizkara stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed the impossible become reality. Wisdom Keeper, if I may speak as the beneficiary of human assistance? Veltharis nodded respectfully. Of course, Admiral Thizkara. Your perspective would be invaluable. The humans didn't develop these capabilities for us, she said, choosing her words carefully. They already possessed them. What they did was adapt existing knowledge and technology to help a species they'd never encountered before. The speed of that adaptation isn't what's remarkable. What's remarkable is that they had such advanced capabilities ready to deploy in the first place. Another council member, a crystalline being from the Sirius system, spoke up with a voice like chiming bells. Admiral This's Kara, are you suggesting that humanity has been concealing military and medical capabilities from the galactic community? Not concealing, Admiral Chen interjected, before This's Kara could respond. Simply not volunteering information that wasn't requested. When humanity applied for membership in the galactic community, we were asked about our scientific achievements, our cultural development, and our commitment to peaceful cooperation. We answered those questions honestly. No one asked about our military capabilities or our experience with large-scale medical operations. The uncomfortable silence that followed this statement spoke volumes about the assumptions the galactic community had made about their newest members. Admiral Chen, Velthara said slowly, are you telling us that humanity has been capable of this level of military and medical intervention throughout your membership in the galactic community? Humanity has been capable of far more than this, Chen replied quietly. What you're seeing here represents a tiny fraction of our actual capabilities, scaled down specifically for a humanitarian mission. We came here to heal, not to conquer, but we came prepared to protect our medical personnel and our patients from anyone who might try to interfere with that mission. The implications of this statement rippled through the council like a shockwave. Species that had viewed humanity as enthusiastic but inexperienced junior members of the galactic community suddenly realized they had been sharing space with a civilization whose true capabilities were completely unknown. May we ask? The Syrian representative chimed carefully. What humanity's full military capabilities actually encompass? Admiral Chen considered the question for a long moment before responding. Council members. Humanity currently maintains a standing fleet of approximately 12,000 combat vessels, ranging from fast attack craft to strategic planetoid bases. Our medical corps operates 600 hospital ships like the ones currently deployed here. We have defensive installations in 17 star systems and strategic alliances with 43 colonies outside galactic community space. The numbers hung in the air like a physical weight. Most galactic community members maintained fleets of dozens or hundreds of ships. The idea that humanity possessed military resources on the scale Chen was describing was almost incomprehensible. But, Chen continued, those capabilities exist to protect human interests and to assist allies when requested. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our current systems, and we have no interest in threatening the peace that the galactic community has worked so hard to maintain. Wisdom Keeper Veltharas spoke into the stunned silence. Admiral Chen, why has humanity never mentioned these capabilities before? Because, Chen said simply, no one ever asked, and because we hoped we'd never need to use them. Humanity has seen enough of war, council members. We've learned what happens when species compete through violence rather than cooperation. We joined the galactic community because we believed in the possibility of a better way. She gestured toward the medical readings streaming across the command center displays, showing the steady improvement of thousands of Zephyrian patients. This is what we prefer to do with our capabilities. Heal instead of harm. Build instead of destroy. Protect instead of conquer. But if someone threatens innocent lives, if someone attacks medical personnel, if someone tries to prevent us from saving people who need help, her voice hardened slightly. Then they discover what 12,000 years of military evolution looks like when it's used to protect rather than to dominate. As the transmission ended and the coalition representatives disconnected to process this new information, This's Kara found herself looking at Admiral Chen with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. Admiral, she said quietly, what happens now? What happens to my people? Chen's expression softened. What happens now, Admiral, is that your people heal. They rebuild. They rejoin the galactic community as equals, not as victims. The Korthak Empire will think very carefully before attacking medical personnel again, and the galaxy will know that humanity stands ready to defend those who cannot defend themselves. She paused, looking out at the stars beyond the command center's viewports. And perhaps, Admiral This's Kara, the galaxy will learn something that humanity discovered long ago. That the greatest strength isn't the ability to destroy your enemies, but the ability to turn them into friends. Some of the Korthak prisoners we're treating in our medical bays are already asking questions about galactic community membership. It turns out that showing mercy to your enemies can be more effective than showing them force. As Admiral This's Kara returned to her own ship to oversee the ongoing rescue operations, she carried with her a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't the young, naive species that everyone had assumed them to be. They were something far more complex and potentially far more powerful. A civilization that had learned from its own mistakes and chosen to use its strength in service of life rather than death. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. But perhaps more importantly, the galaxy would never have to fear that medical ships would go undefended, that humanitarian missions would go unprotected, or that cries for help would go unanswered. Humanity had shown that they were ready to be guardians as well as healers. And for species like the Zephyrians, that made all the difference in the universe.
The massive alien vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a dying star, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with weak, desperate light. Captain Sarah Chan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the readings on her tactical display with a mixture of fascination and suspicion. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of their largest battlecruiser. Yet her sensors detected no weapons, no shields, and power readings that suggested critical system failures throughout. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the alien vessel," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez announced from the communication station. "Same as before, ma'am. They're requesting immediate assistance." Sarah's jaw tightened. 3 days had passed since the alien ship had appeared in their solar system, broadcasting distress signals in broken English mixed with what their linguists had identified as at least 14 different languages. The translation matrices had worked overtime to piece together the message. Their ship was dying, their people were dying, and they needed help. "Any word from Earth Command?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Negative, Captain." Admiral Morrison's last message was clear. "We maintain defensive positions and await further orders. No contact, no assistance." Sarah turned to face the massive view screen that dominated the forward section of the bridge. The alien ship's hull was covered in what appeared to be organic growths, like coral formations, that were now withering and turning dark. Occasionally, small pieces would break away and drift into space, leaving behind scarred metal that looked almost like wounded flesh. "Captain, Dr. Elizabeth Voss, the ship's xenobiologist, spoke up from her station. I've been analyzing the biosignatures from their vessel. Whatever's happening over there, it's not just mechanical failure. The organic components of their ship appear to be dying. And fast." "How fast?" Sarah asked. "Based on the rate of decay I'm observing, I'd estimate they have maybe 48 hours before complete system failure. After that," Dr. Voss shook her head, "they'll be adrift with no life support." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Sarah stared at the alien vessel, her mind racing. She'd spent 15 years in the Earth Defense Force, working her way up from a junior navigation officer to commanding one of humanity's most advanced starships. She'd seen action against pirates, helped evacuate colonies during natural disasters, and even participated in first contact protocols during training simulations. But this was different. This was real, and the decisions she made in the next few hours could determine not just the fate of the aliens aboard that ship, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and whatever species had sent these desperate souls to their doorstep. "Ma'am, incoming priority transmission from Admiral Morrison," Rodriguez announced. Sarah straightened. On screen, the weathered face of Admiral James Morrison appeared on the main display, his expression as stern as Sarah had ever seen it. Behind him, she could see the familiar blue and white walls of Earth Command's Central Operations Center. "Captain Chun, I trust you've maintained your position and followed orders regarding the alien vessel." "Yes, sir. We've maintained a defensive distance of 50,000 kilometers as ordered. No contact has been initiated." Good. I'm calling to inform you that the Security Council has reached a decision regarding this situation. Morrison's pause was heavy with meaning. The alien vessel is to be turned away from Earth space immediately. They are to be escorted to the edge of our solar system and informed that any attempt to return will be met with military force. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Sir, with respect, our analysis indicates their ship is failing. They may not survive a journey to the system's edge. That's not our concern, Captain. We know nothing about these aliens, their intentions, or their capabilities. For all we know, this could be an elaborate ruse designed to get us to lower our guard. The Security Council has decided that Earth's safety takes precedence. Admiral, what if they're genuinely in distress? What if we're condemning innocent beings to death? Morrison's expression hardened. Captain, I understand your humanitarian concerns, but you have your orders. The potential risk to Earth's 4 billion inhabitants outweighs any obligation we might feel toward unknown aliens. You will escort them out of our space within the next 12 hours. That is final. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the empty screen. Around her, the bridge crew maintained their professionalism, but she could sense their discomfort with the orders they'd just received. Captain, Rodriguez ventured quietly. Your orders? Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her daughter Emma, safe in her boarding school on Mars. Thinking of her parents, retired, and living in the orbital habitats around Jupiter. Thinking of the billions of humans scattered across the solar system who are counting on people like her to keep them safe. Then, she thought of the dying ship hanging in space before them, its bioluminescent hull growing dimmer by the hour. Hail the alien vessel, she said finally. Let's see if we can establish proper communications before we deliver our message. The communications array hummed as it locked onto the alien ship's transmission frequency. After a few moments, the view screen flickered and resolved into an image that made several bridge officers gasp audibly. The alien that appeared before them was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin had a silvery, almost metallic quality that seemed to shimmer in the light of what Sarah assumed was their ship's bridge. Large, dark eyes dominated its elongated face, and what might have been gills fluttered along the sides of its neck. But it was the expression of desperate hope that crossed its features when their transmission connected that hit Sarah like a physical blow. Please, the alien said in halting English, its voice carrying harmonics that suggested it might normally communicate through song or complex vocalizations. We are dying. Our ship, our people, the darkness spreads through our vessel like poison. We have traveled so far, hoped so much that your people might help us. I am Captain Sarah Chan of the Earth ship Defiant, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. Can you tell me your name and the nature of your emergency? The alien's large eyes seemed to brighten slightly. I am Singer of Deep Waters, speaker for the reef builders of the Third Spiral. Our ship, it is alive, Captain Chun, grown rather than built. But something has infected it, a plague that turns living metal to dead stone. We have no cure, no way to stop it. How many of your people are aboard your vessel? 300 of my pod siblings remain. We were 500 when we began this journey, but the ship death claims more each day. The younglings. Singer of Deep Waters paused, and Sarah was struck by the universal nature of grief she heard in the alien's voice. The younglings suffer most. Their song grows weak. Dr. Voss stepped forward. Captain, if I may. At Sarah's nod, she addressed the alien. Singer of Deep Waters, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Voss, a specialist in biological systems. When you say your ship is alive, do you mean it's a biological construct? Yes, Dr. Voss. My people grow our ships from the great reef mines of our homeworld. They are partners, not tools. This ship, Harmony of Distant Tides, has been my pod's home for 20 cycles. But now she dies, and we die with her. Sarah felt her resolve wavering. The alien's obvious distress, the thought of children suffering aboard that dying ship, everything in her training as both a military officer and a human being screamed at her to help. But her orders were clear. Singer of Deep Waters, I'm I'm very sorry, but I have orders from my government. You and your people cannot remain in our solar system. You must leave immediately. The alien's face went through a series of expressions that Sarah couldn't fully interpret, but the final one was unmistakably devastation. Please, Captain Shun, we have nowhere else to go. Our home world is 6 cycles away, farther than Harmony of Distant Tides can travel in her current state. We came to your people because your transmissions spoke of compassion, of helping those in need. Our transmissions, your entertainment signals, your news broadcasts that reach the stars. We learned your languages, studied your stories. Tales of humans helping strangers, of courage and kindness. We believed. Singer of Deep Water's voice trailed off. We believed wrongly, it seems. Sarah's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She thought of all the movies and TV shows that have been broadcast into space over the decades. All the human stories of heroism and compassion that had apparently reached this alien species and convinced them that humanity would help. I'm sorry, she said again, hating herself for the words. You have 12 hours to leave our space. Any attempt to remain will be met with defensive action. Singer of Deep Waters was quiet for a long moment. Then, with what seemed like tremendous effort, the alien straightened. Understand, Captain Shun. We will not bring harm to your people by our presence. We will depart as you wish. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Sarah stared at the dead screen, feeling like she'd just betrayed everything she'd ever believed about what it meant to be human. Captain, Dr. Voss said quietly, there might be another way. Sarah turned to her. Explain. If their ship is biological and suffering from some kind of infection or plague, there's a chance we could help without violating the spirit of our orders. We could provide medical supplies, biological samples, maybe even send over a small team to assist with treatment. Our orders were very specific, Doctor. No assistance. Our orders were to protect Earth. Commander Torres, the ship's executive officer, interjected. Maybe helping them helps us too. We learn about their technology, their biology, information that could be vital if we encounter other alien species. Sarah looked around at her crew. She could see the conflict in their faces, the same struggle between duty and conscience that she was feeling. These were good people, people who had joined the Defense Force to protect humanity, but also to explore, to discover, to represent the best of what their species could be. Dr. Voss, in your professional opinion, could we provide assistance in a way that doesn't compromise Earth's security? The xenobiologist nodded eagerly. Absolutely, Captain. We could start with a full sensor sweep to understand the nature of their ship's infection. If it's biological, we might be able to synthesize treatments using our medical fabricators. And if we did send over a small team, they could wear full environmental suits and follow strict quarantine protocols. Sir Rodriguez added, we could also position ourselves to monitor the alien vessel while providing assistance. If this is some kind of trap, we'd be in the perfect position to respond. Sarah walked to the forward view screen, staring out at the dying alien ship. In the past hour, she'd noticed that more pieces had broken away from its hull, and the bioluminescent patterns were noticeably dimmer. Whatever was happening over there, it was accelerating. She thought again of her daughter Emma, of her parents, of all the humans she'd sworn to protect. But she also thought of the alien younglings that Singer of Deep Waters had mentioned, children who were suffering and dying while she debated following orders that felt increasingly hollow. Dr. Voss, how long would it take to synthesize potential treatments based on sensor data? If I can get detailed biological scans of their ship systems, maybe 6 to 8 hours for basic antibiotics and antifungals. Longer for anything more complex. Sarah made her decision. It wasn't the safe decision, and it certainly wasn't the one Admiral Morrison would approve of, but it was the right one. Mr. Rodriguez, open a channel to the alien vessel. Channel open, Captain. Singer of Deep Waters appeared on screen again, though now Sarah could see that the lighting behind the alien had grown noticeably dimmer. Singer of Deep Waters, this is Captain Shun. I'd like to propose something. We're going to provide you with medical assistance for your ship's condition. My teams will work to develop treatments that might help Harmony of Distant Tides recover. The alien's large eyes widened. Captain, I thought, your orders. My orders are to protect Earth and her people. Sometimes the best way to do that is to show other species what humanity is really about. We'll begin sensor sweeps immediately and start working on treatments. For the first time since their initial contact, Sarah saw something like Hope Cross, Singer of Deep Waters features. Captain Chun, my people will remember this kindness. Whatever the outcome, we will remember. Sarah nodded. Dr. Voss will coordinate with your medical personnel. We'll do everything we can. After the transmission ended, Commander Torres stepped up beside her. Captain, Admiral Morrison isn't going to like this. Probably not, Sarah agreed. But I'd rather face a court-martial than live with the knowledge that we let 300 beings die when we could have helped them. She turned to address her crew. All right, people, we have work to do. Dr. Voss, I want those sensor sweeps started immediately. Commander Torres, put us at yellow alert and maintain defensive positions. If this goes sideways, we need to be ready. And Rodriguez, start preparing a full report for Earth Command. Whatever happens, they're going to want to know exactly what we did and why. As her crew sprang into action, Sarah looked back at the alien ship. In the next few hours, she would either save 300 lives and potentially forge a new relationship between humanity and an alien species, or she would find herself facing the end of her military career and possible criminal charges. Either way, she knew she was making the right choice. Sometimes being human meant taking risks for people who weren't human at all. And sometimes the most important orders were the ones you wrote for yourself. The Defiant moved closer to the alien vessel, its sensors reaching out like invisible hands to touch the dying ship and begin the work of understanding how to heal it. In her captain's chair, Sarah Chun prepared to either save the day or destroy her career. Time would tell which it would be. Dr. Elizabeth Voss had seen many strange things during her career as a xenobiologist, but the readings coming from the alien vessel made her question everything she thought she knew about the boundaries between organic and mechanical systems. The sensor data painted a picture of something that shouldn't exist, yet clearly did. Captain, you need to see this, she called across the bridge, her voice tight with excitement and concern. Sarah moved to stand behind Dr. Voss's station, studying the complex biological readings scrolling across the multiple displays. What am I looking at, Doctor? This ship isn't just biological, Captain. It's essentially a massive organism. Look at these readings. Dr. Voss highlighted several data streams with her stylus. Neural pathways running throughout the hull, circulatory systems carrying nutrients and oxygen, even what appears to be a digestive system that processes raw materials and converts them into ship components. Sarah frowned as she studied the data. You're saying this ship is alive in the literal sense? More than that, it's intelligent. These neural patterns are incredibly complex, possibly more sophisticated than human brain activity. The ship isn't just carrying passengers, Captain. It's a partner, maybe even a friend. The implications hit Sarah immediately. If the alien ship was truly intelligent, then they weren't just watching it die. They were watching a murder. What about this plague or infection that Singer of Deep Waters mentioned? Dr. Voss switched to another set of readings, these ones showing disturbing patterns in red and orange. Here's where it gets really interesting and really troubling. The infection isn't biological in the traditional sense. It's more like a nanotechnology plague, but one that's specifically designed to target the interface between organic and artificial systems. Meaning someone created a weapon specifically designed to kill ships like this one. The nanites attack the neural pathways first, essentially lobotomizing the ship. Then they spread to the circulatory and digestive systems. Within days, what was once a living, thinking vessel becomes nothing more than dead metal floating in space. Commander Torres joined them at the science station. Doctor, you're talking about a biological weapon. One that's incredibly sophisticated. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And based on the progression patterns, I'd say this ship was deliberately infected. This wasn't an accident or natural contamination. Someone did this to them. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The idea that an alien species had weaponized nanotechnology to specifically target living ships suggested a level of malice and technological sophistication that was deeply troubling. Can we treat it? I think so, but it's going to require direct intervention. The nanites have adapted to the ship's immune responses, but they're not adapted to human medical technology. I need to get aboard that ship and work directly with their medical systems. Absolutely not, Sarah said immediately. We don't know if the infection could spread to humans, and I'm not risking my crew. Captain, with respect, we're their only hope. And based on what I'm seeing, if this infection was weaponized, then whoever did this might still be out there. We need to understand how it works, not just for the aliens' sake, but for our own protection. Sarah looked at the alien vessel on the main screen. In the hours since they'd begun their sensor sweeps, the deterioration had accelerated visibly. Large sections of the hull that had been glowing with bioluminescent life were now dark and dead, and more debris was breaking away every few minutes. How long do we have? Based on current progression, maybe 18 hours before total system failure. After that, life support will fail and everyone aboard that ship will die. Ma'am, incoming transmission from the alien vessel, Rodriguez announced. On screen, Singer of Deep Waters appeared, but the alien looked noticeably different than before. Its silvery skin had taken on a grayish tint, and the gills along its neck were fluttering more rapidly, suggesting respiratory distress. Captain Shun, I must inform you that our situation has worsened. The ship death has reached the life support systems. My people are beginning to suffer from atmospheric contamination. Sarah could see the strain in the alien's posture. Singer of Deep Waters, my medical officer believes she can help, but she needs to come aboard your ship to work directly with your medical systems. The alien's large eyes showed surprise. You would risk your people for ours? Dr. Voss believes the treatment requires hands-on intervention, but I need to know that your people will guarantee her safety. Captain Shun, Dr. Voss would be honored as a healer among my people. No harm would come to her from us. But I must warn you, the ship itself is becoming unstable. Sections of the hull are collapsing, and the neural pathways that control navigation and life support are failing. It may not be safe for any being aboard Harmony of Distant Tides. Dr. Voss stepped into view of the communications pickup. Singer of Deep Waters, I'm Dr. Voss. I understand the risks, but I believe I can synthesize a treatment that will stop the progression of the infection and possibly reverse some of the damage. However, I need access to your ship's medical bay and biological systems. Dr. Voss, if you truly believe you can help, then you will have access to everything we can provide. But please understand, we cannot guarantee your safety. Harmony of Distant Tides grows weaker by the hour. Sarah made a command decision. Dr. Voss, you'll take a full environmental suit and emergency beacon. At the first sign of danger, you transport back immediately. Commander Torres, you'll accompany her with a security team. Captain, I can handle, Dr. Voss began. Non-negotiable, Doctor. You're not going over there alone. An hour later, Sarah watched from the bridge as a shuttle carrying Dr. Voss, Commander Torres, and two security specialists approached the alien vessel. The closer they got, the more apparent the ship's deterioration became. What had appeared from